Guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a super cool product to show you guys. Now, in an effort of full disclosure, I actually purchased this trimmer from Henderson Precision, and right after I did that, they actually sent me a mail and it's like, Pete, listen, can we do some sort of video thing or whatever the case is? So it actually worked out fine, but I did still purchase a whole bunch of bits and pieces that go with it, like the little cutting pilots, but I'll show you guys how we use those more specifically. Also, if you're new and you found this channel as a result of this product, please do me a favor and hit the little subscribe button down here. It's absolutely free. The good news is, if you're also new, you have a whole big back catalog of videos to catch up, and there are some bangers in there, I guarantee you that. Anyway, without further ado, let's roll the intro and get straight into this product, shall we? Okay, I hope you enjoyed that montage of the trimmer in action. Now, there's a very specific reason, actually a few reasons why I decided to actually go for this trimmer, because there are other options on the market. Now, I used to trim, every now and again when I realized I needed to trim as a necessity. And obviously the whole thing with reloading is doing the same thing over and over, okay, and have consistency built into your whole sort of reloading system. Now, if you only trim every fifth firing, that's a problem, okay? Because slowly but surely, as that neck gets longer and longer, you'll have more contact area, okay? In other words, you'll have more friction fit on your actual bullet with the brass, and that's going to lead to more neck tension and lead to inconsistency. So the reason I didn't do it is because the previous way I was trimming was a major pain in my ass, okay? I had sort of a drill, a cordless drill sometimes the cordless drill, because I'm working with sort of large volumes of brass, the battery would die and my fingers would feel like they're dying, okay? Because you'd have to physically push this thing in. Then you get a case afterwards that is completely square. It needs to go through multiple stations on the case prep station. It just took forever, if you're working with 500-600 pieces of brass and you're shooting the type of volumes we're doing, it's just too much work. So for me, I'm very big on the value of my time. I'd much rather trim 200 cases in 20 minutes, okay, and then go play with my wife. Oh. I'd much rather do that too. But go spend time with my family and play with my kids. So that is the reason why there's an auto trickler behind me, because back in the day I had the exact same thing. Yes, it's an expensive piece of kit, but if it gets me time to either spend in my business or spend with my family, or hell, just put my feet up and Netflix and chill, or watch an impact shooting video, or I watch other YouTube videos. I don't watch my own videos, because by the time I've uploaded them, I've seen them 19 times. So, I value my time very, very highly. So if you're like that and you shoot a lot, this is the tool for you. Now, in all honesty, the week sort of before I decided I was going to pull the trigger on this unit, I bought one of those Lyman case trimmers. The problem for me with those were, I shoot all kinds of weird cartridges. I shoot the Shermans, I shoot the Dashers, and all kinds of weird oddie things. And I needed specific bushings to sort of index off the shoulder. Now let me grab a case and I'll explain that to you guys. So how that machine worked, it actually indexed off the shoulder, and that's how you adjusted the sort of cutting length, your trim length, how much you want to take off. Now I have a couple of problems with that. If you've had some inconsistency with your sizing or whatever, you could have issues there. But my main issue was, at the end of the day, we're cutting brass off the front section of your case here, and all that sort of shavings and stuff can build up sort of in that collet or bushing, whatever you want to call it. And that can also result in your case not being all the way forward. Now that's the one element why I didn't really like that approach. For the Wildcats, you know, you need a custom bushing, very likely. You could possibly get away with some sort of other bushing. But the fact that it head spaced essentially off the shoulder, I wasn't really cool on. What makes this unit unique is that it clamps onto your back of your case, okay? And you can basically put anything from a 223 Remington up to, I think it's a 338. No, it's going to be up to Magnum for the back here, and you simply attach it like that. It is super quick. Now, I did see a really cool idea that I'm going to implement on sort of most of my benches in here on the Panhandle Precision channel. Now, Sam had sort of a lip put on his workbench that he can take these plastic bins and basically put them there. So as soon as you're done with the case, if you turn that, it'll fall into your bin. So that is a really smart idea and something I'm definitely going to implement here on my workbench. Now, the other reason I decided to go for the Henderson over sort of the other options out there is because it chamfers and deburrs at the same time that it's trimming back the case. Now, that is a freaking game changer, because in the past what I do is, as I said, after cutting, I'd be left with 100% square edge, and when you see the bullet on that, it would like scrape the jacket off. There'd be these sort of copper rings. It was just terrible. For my OCD, it was nuts, okay? And what happened is, all of the 500 cases that you just trimmed down, you'd need to then run through one station on the case prep, next station, and then through the neck brush. So it took forever. So I'm basically eliminating that whole machine. So there might actually be a link to that machine down below for the guys watching here in South Africa. That's for the case prep station. This is going to do all of that for me in one go. Now, the one thing I don't like, and I kind of like to share stuff with you guys that I don't like about a product, is the way that it adjusts sort of the length. It's a bit cumbersome. It would be fantastic if there was sort of almost a micrometer type of adjustment, but I will show you guys how to actually adjust the length that you trim to. The good news is it's a kind of set it and forget it type of situation per case. Now, what's really cool is they do supply you with some bolts and some lock nuts, so you can actually set this up for multiple calibers. Okay, so if you're doing dasher and you're doing like a 300 Win Mag or something to that effect, you can set up different bolts, take a little Koki permanent marker, and actually write which bolt is for which caliber, and you should be off to the races, and it's a relatively quick change. Now, I've already set this up sort of on my trim length. Now, in my reloading classes, by the way, there is still a coupon floating around, and this video, if you watch this video, there's a 50% off coupon for my whole reloading school. I used to take 10,000ths off the neck length, and the reason I did that is because I was only trimming, you know, every 5th, 6th firing. I'd kind of buy myself a few firings. What I'm going to do now is basically take about 5,000ths off, and I'm going to set and forget that bolt and implement this trimming process as just, you know, a normal part of my reloading process. That way, every time, every case will get sort of trimmed back to its original spec that I started my load development off, and we're going to be off to the races. Now, what I would recommend doing, and I have done this with all of these cases that we're going to run through, I pop them through our expander mandrel set in 30 cal just to make sure that we've sort of pushed out any inconsistencies and we have a uniform sort of neck diameter and neck tension so that everything is the same. It's just a sort of precautionary step, if you will. You never know if a case got slightly dented and now you're pushing it into a trimmer, so you don't want to be doing that. Anyway, let me show you guys how this works. I've got a little protective cover here. Also, funny story, the American plugs that show up in South Africa are different. We use 220 volt, I believe. You guys are, for the most part, on 110. And I was super hesitant whether I should be cutting that plug off or not. But thanks to the guys in the POI, the People of Impact, they said, Pete, you should be good to go. But still flicking the switch on for the first time was a little bit nerve-wracking, not gonna lie. Okay, let's pop this guy in here. Okay, I'm doing this a little bit awkwardly because of, you know, you were here. Otherwise, I would just stand normally here. Flick it on. I'm going to wait for it to spin up a little bit. It does make a little bit of noise, but it's not too bad. Boom. Literally that easy. I could probably have done that way faster if I was sort of set up a little bit better behind it. But the inside of this neck is absolutely perfect. Like, I could never get that right with the little case prep station. Am I pushing too hard? Am I pushing too soft? Is there shavings coming off or not? But the inside is perfect and the outside is absolutely perfect. I wish, I'm gonna do my best to actually take a video of this. As I said, I have set up sort of this stop bolt because there's a hard stop on this. Now, what's really cool about that, you don't know if you're pushing it too hard, you know, it eliminates, it can't go further than that. So I have cheated a little bit. I'm going to show you guys how to change the cutter head now. We're going to jump over to something like 223 Remington, and I'm going to have to set a new bolt for that, or I'll show you how to do a new bolt. So come a little bit closer and I'll show you guys the inner workings of this beauty. So it goes without saying, but when you're working on equipment with a motor in, you want to make sure that is unplugged. So my plug is underneath there. I'm not going to reach under there and unplug it, but know that when this cable runs down the back, it is unplugged. What's also very cool is you've got a speed control and sort of your on and off switch on the left hand side here. So if you turn it on, you can increase or decrease your speed depending on what kind of cutting you're into. But for me, power! Okay, let me unplug this sucker. Okay, proof that it's unplugged. Now, what we can do, we can take off this little protective shield, and you do that simply by getting rid of this little screw. Now what I want to do is I want to remove this bolt over here. Now to do that, I'm going to use this Allen key. We're going to pop that guy in there, and we should be able to turn it loose, okay, because the lock nut we've secured on this side. So after that, I'm just going to, with my fingers, pop this guy out and write on it that this is my sort of setup for the 30 Sherman mag. Now, very important, when you're setting this up, you want to make sure that there's enough thread into this side of the machine, because if you only go like a turn and a bit around, that screw's not in there yet. So make sure that your screws are in properly. Now that we have sort of that set stop screw out the way, we want to change the cutter head. Okay, I'm going to pop an Allen key into this back side of the machine. There's a nice sort of Allen key there. Now this is a big difference between the version 1 and the version 2. It's a little bit different. So hold that in place with the Allen key. I'm going to put this guy on here. It's very important also when setting this up, maybe you want to read the instructions of this machine, but you don't want to over tighten anything here. So now that that's loose, I'm going to undo that with my finger and turn this Allen key at the back here out all the way, because that's basically holding this cutter head in place. It's a long one, so it goes all the way through and threads into the back of your actual cutter. So now we've got the cutter on the one side. Something initially that I thought would be really cool is if they actually engraved for you, you know, this is the cutter for SoCal and SoCal, because I didn't actually see that. But if you look at the front, you will see that they have done that. So thank you very much, guys. That is a lovely touch. But for me, just to make sure that I love the idea of redundancies, I've actually checked everyone and written on their little bags, you know, this is 284, this is 264, so that I just make sure that I don't use the wrong cutter. Now you could potentially use sort of a smaller cutter with something like a 30 cal. Obviously you're going to have a hard time putting a 2.2 Remington case over the 30 cal cutter. Now speaking of 224, let's pop our 2.2 caliber cutter in there. That's going to be 22 Creedmoor, 223, 22 250, all of those kind of things. We're going to pop this guy back into the back, tighten that up real quick, and we're just going to put a little nip on the front here. I almost feel like you could leave this finger tight, but I'm just going to put a little nip. And there we go, just like that. Grab our 223 cases, and I'll show you guys sort of how this mechanism works at the back. Really, really smart. So we're going to pop our case in there. Make sure you're pushing square to the back, that you don't misalign it like that, because you can misalign them, but then obviously it's just not going to go over well. For you it looks, but it actually misses. Let me demonstrate that like that rather. So you're obviously going to miss the little pilot here. So what I found is the best way to actually set this up, where you kind of are set off the get-go, is to put a case in. Obviously we're still unplugged, okay, then run it all the way to the front like that up until the blades, and then you can kind of eyeball, you know, how long should the set screw be, because this nut has to push against the back of this, and then the back of this Allen key stops against this screw at the back here. So in order to do that, I'm kind of going to hold the nut there and say, how close would we be if that's sort of the final position? And on that guy, we are so close that I'm actually going to not use this one and sort of show you guys how we would have done. Let's say, because yeah, that's much better, because as you can see, we're a mile off the blades there. Okay, so I need this nut to be higher up on the screw, so I'm going to pop my little hex wrench in here, and I am going to turn this into that guy. And this is the one part where I wish there could be some sort of way that this could be a little bit easier. It's not that it's difficult, but I feel like we could make it a little bit better. So let me have a little squiz here again, where we're sort of there, very close. I might have overdone it a little bit, but that's fine. So now I'm going to just take my case out. We're going to run this guy all the way in here. I feel like you guys are too far over there, all the way over there. But it's a difficult sort of thing to, because I can't really film from this side, so it is a little bit tricky. So we're going to do this in by hand, okay, like that, and then sort of put our case back in and see where we are, how far we are off. Okay, so our screw needs to come out a little bit in order for us to take that sort of first smidge off. Now, as with any sort of cutting, it's measured twice, cut once. You can always cut something shorter again, but you can't add back. So that's very important, especially if you're shooting like sort of a wildcat cartridge or something like that. You want to make sure, okay, that you don't over trim it, because you're going to end up with a tiny, tiny little neck. So make sure you rather start long, err on the conservative side, do a cut, measure it, adjust a little bit, do a cut, and so on. That's the safer way of doing this. Trust me, I have many of those t-shirts. Okay, so if I adjust it out a little bit, we're kind of on our stop screw there before we are on the blades. So that's good to go. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my calipers and actually measure this guy. Now for the purpose of the exercise, I want you guys to sort of ignore the length of the brass, because all we're looking to do here is take 5 thousandths off the brass. So we've got quite a nice little number to work with, 1.755. So we basically want 1.750. Okay, then we would have taken 5 thousandths off. So it's a tiny, tiny little cut. A little goes a long way. So let's do our first sort of cut. I'm going to flick the power switch back on. Let's just see if everything is hunky-dory. We are kind of stopping. I'm going to back it off a little bit. You can see the case moving back off the sort of blades, and slowly turn this in, and there I can see I'm starting to make contact with the sort of main part of the blade. I will give you guys a super close-up of this. So there I stop moving, so that is going to be on the money, okay, and I'm going to lock that guy down. What I need to do now is just hold this Allen key in place and then turn this screw in, and then lock that guy down in place that it doesn't move on me. It should be fine if you're doing one, but if you're doing volume, you don't want that. Let's just double check everything is still hunky-dory. Cool. Pop this back on. Okay, now we did exactly what we wanted to do. We just wanted to touch the front. Okay, that might have been a little bit too conservative. Okay, so now we know we need to go a little bit more in. In other words, we need to move this bolt that way. Okay, so we're going to loosen that a little bit. Sorry about the case falling. And I'm going to use that sort of as a reference, tighten that back up. Okay, give this a little more, and then tighten that guy again. Okay, we're going to take our same case. Let's give it a run. Now we're talking. So we definitely took quite a bit more off there. Just going to make sure, as with anything, you can shove this in and cut faster, but I see no real gain in doing that. So I just take my time with this. Okay. Every time I take a case out and I see how perfect that is on the inside, it is just miles beyond what I had with my other trimmer, and as I said that, I dropped the case on the floor. Okay, got it. So let's see what our measurement comes out as, and pretty much nailed it. 17495. So we are pretty much, let me show you guys that. Oh, there we go. It jumped to 1750, which is what we were looking for. So spot on, super consistent, and you know, changing calibers and stuff like that, it's really not difficult. As I said, it would just be cool if there was some sort of way to do like a micrometer type of thing here, which that would be a game changer. But as is, this machine is freaking rock solid. I am super happy I got this. It's going to be a massive time saver. Now that I've set up for 223 6-dasher, my 30 Sherman mag, I can prep all of my cases and get everything ready. And the biggest thing I'm super pumped about for this specific machine is the fact that I'm going to have consistency back. I'll show you guys a clip here. What happens when your brass becomes too long? You have trouble closing your bolt. It's just a recipe for a disaster. And the reason I ran into those problems is because I wasn't doing this step every time. So if you don't have a trimmer and you value your time, yes, I have a lot of high-end gear in sort of my reloading room, but I value my time very highly, okay? And I'm committed to the sport for, it's not a flash in the pan for me. And that's why I bought I think that's a V2. I've had it since version 2, upgraded to V3. There's version 4 out now. I don't think I'm gonna upgrade to that because, this is good enough. I'm specifically talking about the scale we have here in the background. But I value my time incredibly highly, as I said. So I'm committed to the sport for the long term. So to invest in something like this, and in fact, I did put my money where my mouth is. I did buy this machine because I do see the value in that, especially because it does the perfect chamfer and deburr. Something I didn't mention is that these blades are set at the factory. They don't recommend fiddling with them. If you wanted to fiddle, then you can fiddle there. And let's end on that note. I have a very good friend of mine that has a saying, fiddle, fiddle, So if you don't know what you're doing, don't fiddle with something. Guys, thank you for watching. Thanks to Henderson for making this badass piece of equipment. Again, if you're not subscribed, you can do that down here, 100% free. And if I start irritating you because I upload too regularly and too consistently, then this was never the channel for you. I'll see you guys in the next video. Keep it real. And if you're traveling for the holidays, I'm not sure exactly when this will be out, but I did rock a Christmas shirt just in case. Okay, cheers guys, love you long time, bye.